hard to move around. He had to pull the net and throw it inside over the, about 4.
Pull the whole toenail off and we just lift it off like that.
And he was just 4 hours.
Ladies and gentlemen and children, I'd like to share with you a few of the things which I've been privileged to learn myself. I'd like to demonstrate, first of all, the power, the inner power called the chi, C-H-I, or the C-I, chi, or in India it's called Dharma, D-H-A-R-M-A. It's the inner force, life within all of us, causes us to breathe. The force, I would like to show you how to use this force to keep from getting hurt. So I call breath. I call I'm going to ask him to hit me in the stomach.
Here he is showing his chi power again. And then you'll see a delayed reaction.
What I did was actually use the inner strength, the inner force back against what he was going to do.
He was just talking about his inner strength and inner force fighting back what was just happening. Here we have one of the students from Tennessee Karate Institute testing over at Congaree School. Elvis was part of this rank test and made the decision to promote this little yellow belt to a green belt. The young man did a great job on this kata. We call this a kata. It's a form of dance. It has roughly about 20 moves to this pattern, and it's like fighting self-defense people from different angles. Okay, here we go again. This is Elvis. He's getting on his knees. He's ready to pray. This is what you do when somebody pulls a gun on you at 10 feet away. There was his animal name. Mr. Holcomb was a powerful man. You'll see him more here in a few minutes. Right here he is. He punched me harder than anybody at the school. He was a real powerful man. He was one of the Gladiators. And he was part of the team that Elvis was sponsoring. You'll see Bill Wallace in his uniform here in just a moment. Stars and Stripes that Elvis paid for. He bought the whole team to go to Mexico and fight over there. We did a great job on the team. It was an incredible opportunity for everybody that went. They had a great time. And Mr. Stanley here, the one on the right, that was Elvis's stepbrother. And right here, he's what we call an uke. He's like the dummy that's getting beat on. And it's a position that people earn the right to do that. You got to be able to take punishment pretty well to be a good uke, but it's important to make your partner look good. And once again, this is at Tennessee Karate Institute. We had a little over 4,000 square feet in this building. Elvis bought those mirrors, you see. He ended up putting red and black carpet in the school right after the shooting of this film. And I understand that carpet cost a little over $4,000 that went in there. This is above the drugstore over at Cleveland and Overton Park in Memphis. Elvis ended up bringing Bill Wallace to be the head instructor at this school in August of 1974. That's his 5 techniques again. You notice he's hitting Mr. Stanley just a little harder, but he can take it. But he had excellent control. Elvis was great with his hands. His feet, though, in the Kempo style he worked in, they didn't use high kicks at all. Yeah, when you grab somebody like that, there's quite a few places around the body you can grab them. You can just control them, and they'll do exactly what you tell them to. That's a real good move. You notice as he throws that punch, he got out of the way. It's always best not to be there. You can see the passion he has doing this. Elvis wanted to promote the martial arts and show the world how great it was. It was good for the whole family. He was striking at vital parts of the body. It's hard to recognize them for the novice. This is an arm break. He's breaking the elbow there. That's a real nice arm break he's doing. Here they are getting ready to come up the stair that Elvis had painted red and black. $5,000 to shoot this documentary. He was going to loan his image to it, and that's really what he was doing here. That's why he's in so much of it, so he could draw attention, get the world to watch and see the benefits of the martial arts. Now here's a room full of gladiators. Again, a mountaintop experience for me to get to train with these guys. I got to train with Bill Wallace for about 3 years, Al Holcomb for about 7 or 8 at this time. And we're getting ready to test Bill Wallace. He's getting promoted from 3rd degree to a 4th degree black belt. As you can see, Elvis is doing the talking. He's the head black belt in this class. Elvis wanted to promote the TCB system, the faith, spirit, and discipline of it. as a way of taking care of business and doing it in an honorable, fashionable way. Mr. Wallace just got promoted. You can see Mr. Presley is very proud of him. And that right there is literally the best martial artist in the world. Undefeated in point karate as well as professional kickboxing karate. He started the professional kickboxing. Elvis didn't want him to do it, but he did it against Elvis's wishes. And I think Elvis would have ended up being real proud of him. And the Memphis Press-Scimitar, as well as long as the Commercial Appeal, both did articles on this event in the newspaper the following day. And in the Press-Scimitar it was talking about Elvis's who dish it out can show he can take it as well. And the Commercial Appeal was talking about the Elvis Plans, the karate documentary. So this was some big news for Memphis. Now here's Bill Wallace again, and he's stretching out, and this is the uniform I was describing earlier. Elvis bought the whole team this uniform right here. He had it rushed from Tokata, one of the best uniforms you could buy, and Elvis wanted something special for our team. Mr. Wallace was surprisingly real smart. He worked on his master's degree in Memphis at the university there. Now you'll see Elvis wearing his boots in the dojo. We call our training hall a dojo. Training hall, and a lot of people say, well, why did Elvis wear his boots in there? And I said, well, because he was Elvis. But most people, they would go barefooted back then. And today it's opened up even more where people either wear tennis shoes or go barefooted. A lot of people say, well, why would Elvis wear sunglasses in there? And I said, because he was Elvis. But he was an incredible person. And just a mountaintop experience for me. This was a historical event that I knew I was lucky to be a part of. There he is going back to the eyes again. Elvis loved those techniques to the eyes. Breaking your neck. Can't shoot too well with a broken neck. This is a good takeaway he's doing here. And once again, I was amazed to hear that live gun just clang to the ground. Oh, you can see his passion, how much he loved this. Oh, and Red was his chief of security at this time and was almost ever since the beginning of Elvis's career. This is a real good takedown. But you notice the uniform Elvis is wearing now. It was a custom-made uniform. He had several of them. And you'll notice the bows on them and the flare legs. This was more like a uniform, almost like what he would perform on stage with. He was on stage all the time, even in the martial arts studio. This was a special outfit just for Elvis. No one else had an outfit like this. He's talking about his finger techniques again. He's going back to the eyes. Now, Elvis studied in about 3 really good forms of martial arts. He loved the Kempo style and studied Taekwondo for a style and a Japanese style in the military. But these hand techniques, they're so quick, you can do literally hundreds of techniques with your hands while only being able to do just a few with your legs. So that's why you see Elvis using these hands a lot. He was absolutely incredible with them. Now that's a ridge hand technique right there, going back to the throat or the neck, either one. Ridge hands are very, very good techniques to use. It's a knife hand block. And there's that face strike again, hitting the pressure points in the cheeks. Then back to the eyes. Then to the throat. If somebody can't see you, they can hit you or chase you. Solar plexus. And here they are arriving at the school, the Tennessee Karate Institute. This was called Midtown, where this was at. Across the street from here is where he bought his furniture for the jungle room at his home. Elvis hired me in 1970 to train Red West, and that turned in like about a 3-year relationship for me, one that I haven't been able to find since then. This was an incredible experience. Even at Kong Ree's, Elvis would lead us in meditation. And it was almost like a spiritual event for me. I heard him speak of Bible verses and parts of the Bible that just came to life when I heard him speak them. Now here you can see his actually kick was a little low for Bill. Bill caught him by surprise. Now Mr. Hebler is going to get it up just a little bit higher for him. And that was part of the Kempo system. They felt like rank testing was like a woman having a child, something they never forget. And this event is something that Bill Wallace will never forget it as well. This is one of the photographs that was in the newspaper. Elvis is talking here about how limber Bill Wallace is. See him stretching his arms out, saying, "Well, I can do that with my arms." But this was Bill Wallace was just a real piece of American history, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. And I'm really enjoy being a part of this documentary. I want to thank Graceland for getting this project put out on the market, and I know all the Elvis fans will love it. Here he is stretching out. We always encourage anytime before you do a demonstration to stretch out real well. Bill Wallace mostly used just his left leg. That's what he was famous for. Elvis hired him again back in August of 1974. Elvis, what was unique about Elvis is that he could afford to hire an army to protect him, but he chose to train and work out just like anybody else so he could defend himself. He got a lot of pride in that. There's those stars and stripes again. And once again, you can see the balance and just how pretty Bill Wallace is. How precise he is with his kicks. I fought him for the world title and he beat me in overtime. It was one of these amazing kicks that hit me to the back of the head. I never saw it coming. It happened between my blinks. I still love watching Bill Wallace work. He travels the world doing the seminars, and he's still a joy to view and watch today. When Elvis was training and working out with us, he didn't want people to be easy on him because he was Elvis Presley. He wanted people to turn it up, but it was hard to do. We all wanted to be very respectful to him because he was in the movies, and we wanted to be sure that none of us really wanted to bust his lips or break his nose, so we always wanted to be real careful with him, even though he didn't want us to be. He was a real gladiator. You notice they bowing. Martial arts is a very respectful form that we show. In the Orient, they bow to each other. Here in America, we shake hands, and it's just a way of showing respect. And Elvis was very respectful. There's Mr. Hebler showing off his speed. Here it comes. That's about less than 2 seconds. Now, he was one of Elvis's bodyguards as well. Yeah, you don't want to be on the receiving end of that elbow right there in a real technique. It'd break your jaw or maybe even break your neck. He's talking about have your hors d'oeuvres. Have a salad, your main course, and then dessert. He compares it to a meal. The martial arts is a lot like ice cream. There's many different flavors. It all depends on what you like. You got vanilla and chocolate and strawberry. And martial arts are that way too. There's many different styles, and they're all good. And that's what Elvis wanted to promote. He wanted to promote all styles of the martial arts. And he really wanted to do it through the TCB karate system, to where you could use your faith, spirit, and discipline to accomplish anything you want in life. And he had a passion about that. And if you're an Elvis fan, you know what the TCB meant to him. And like everything else in his life, he wanted to apply it to the martial arts. He had 7 stars put on his patch for 7 days of the week, 7 colors in the rainbow. He thought that was God's perfect number. Here he's talking about his inner chi again. He refers to that a lot. And once again, thank you so much.
Take 113.
I met Red West on a Saturday morning. I got a phone call in 1970 from Red West, and I answered the phone, and on the other end of the line there was a voice, and the voice says, I'm Red West, and I'm the chief of security for Elvis Presley, and we'd like you to become our karate teacher. And I said to myself, yeah, right. I thought somebody was pulling my leg. So I said, who did you say you was? Because I'd heard of Red West. He says, I'm Red West, and I'm the chief of security for Elvis Presley. And we was over at the Police Supply Center. And Charlie Church, who owns that, gave us your name and phone number. And Elvis told me to give you a call that he wanted me to start learning how to do the nunchucks. So all of that made sense. So I said, and then I wanted to act like I didn't teach just anybody. So I said, well, now I don't just teach anybody. I want to meet with you and find out if you're really sincere or not and your true motives for wanting to learn. Bruce Lee had just made this weapon famous in the movies. And I would go all around the country entering tournaments with this weapon, and I was taking first places. So I had developed a real good name for myself. So I met Red later on that day at Onyx Recording Studio. And when I walked in, my first time to ever be in a recording studio, and I was just kind of blown away being there. And our first meeting turned into our very first class. And I taught Red privately. We started off once a week, and when we could, when he was in town, we trained twice a week. And then about 3 months after Red started getting real good with these, Elvis said, I want to meet this kid you're training with. Call and invite him out to the movies. So I get another phone call from Red about 3 months later, and he says, this is Red. And I said, hey, buddy. He says, what are you doing tonight? And I said, well, I don't have any plans. He said, why don't you come out to the movies? So I said, he said, Elvis wants to meet you. And I said, really? And he says, yeah, boy, I was excited on the other end of the phone. I said, wow, I couldn't believe Elvis really wanted to meet me. So I said, well, I can't get off work till 9 o'clock. Can I come over when I get off? And he said, sure, we'd love to have you over. He says, when you get there, just come up, knock on the door at the Memphian Theater. When the usher comes to the door, tell him who you are and that you're our guest. So I did. I got there, and there was a crowd full of people out front, so I thought I'd play with them. I walked up through the crowd. I said, what's going on? He said, oh, Elvis is inside. And I said, really? Wonder if he'll let me in. They said, oh, no, you can't get in. We've been out here trying to see him. So I knocked on the door, and the usher came to the door, and a few minutes later, here he was, and I'm saying, my name's Wayne Carmen, and I'm a guest of Elvis's tonight in Red West. He says, hold on a minute. So he goes back inside. He comes back out 2 minutes later, and he says, oh, yes, sir, come on in. So I ushered in. I looked back at everybody, and their mouths was just wide open. They couldn't believe I got in. But anyway, I got in, and I sat down right behind Elvis, and that was my first time to ever get to meet him. We was watching a movie called Hell House. And through the movie, Elvis, of course, I was raised that Elvis didn't cuss, and he didn't smoke. You know, he was a good, just fine Christian boy. And all of a sudden, through the middle of the movie, he hollers out a cuss word. Everybody laughed but me. My mouth fell open. So all of a sudden, about 10 minutes later, he pulls a cigar out of his coat pocket, sticks it in his mouth. All of a sudden, I was shocked again. He smokes too. So I couldn't wait to see my mother the next day to set her straight. But Elvis was invited me to ride around in a caravan with him that night. We had such a great time, and that turned into a 3-year working relationship to where we trained and had a good time together. Well, there was some problems. Let me back up just a little bit further. Elvis had a problem with Ed Parker, and it was an accident and a misunderstanding. Ed Parker had invited Elvis to come out to a karate tournament, and on the marquee outside, Elvis's name was real big, and he was supposed to be a secret to be there. And when Elvis saw that, he pulled up, and he was real disappointed that Ed Parker had let him down because he was going to be sneak in the back and get to watch it from the back and have a good time there. He thought Ed was trying to make money off of his name. So as it ended up happening, he left there and come back to Memphis. That's how he ended up meeting Kong Ree. Just the timing of things. So he went in the Kong Ree studio. He stayed there a couple of months and had a misunderstanding with Mr. Ree over money. Mr. Ree was needing money to promote the martial arts system. And so anyway, that didn't last long. That relationship, he ended up, was real good to Mr. Ree. He gave Mr. Ree jewelry and a nice car and some money too. But anyway, through the course of all that, Red decided just to do their own program. And their own program was actually a guy by the name of Ben Edwards and Red West. They kind of got together and started it. Ben was one of our other karate teachers with Kong Ree who had left. Kong Ree lost most of his black belts at that time. And so we was all gathering over with Elvis at Tennessee Karate Institute. So there was actually 2 little backers in that. Elvis was one of them. And Elvis, all of a sudden, this was his home. He put his picture in the newspaper. There was some ads with Elvis and Red West in them where they're in their fighting stances and to promote Tennessee Karate Institute. So anyway, after they ended up firing Red West, which happened about 8 months later, and Dave Hebler, the karate project just kind of got put on the back shelf and never ended up getting completed. But that's how the Tennessee Karate Institute came about. Yes, and just the martial arts, they call it arts and not a sport like baseball, and mostly because it has katas to them. Katas helps make it an art. But Elvis loved how pretty it was and graceful it was and quick and fascinating. When he saw Ed Parker for the first time out at the Beverly Hills Hotel, when he was out there, he was mesmerized, just fascinated with how great Ed Parker was. And so anyway, he hooked up with Ed Parker right after that and started training. I'll do whatever you want me to. But then he had the money and the power and the influence to pull Ed Parker in. So Ed became a real good friend of his, and wherever Elvis went, Ed was going there too. And then he wanted to say, hey, why don't you just come to work and help me run my security system? He says, Elvis, I can't do that. You know, I'm a book author. He had 10 books out on the market, 100 schools out there. He was a real famous martial artist. He was the father of American Kempo karate. And Elvis loved him. Their initials were the same, EP for Ed Parker. But anyway, Elvis had a tremendous love for him. But Elvis wanted to promote the martial arts because of how it will help you accomplish your goals. And he wanted to make them honorable goals in your life and how to be able to apply these principles to accomplish anything you wanted, even if it meant going to see the president at the White House. So he was able to practice those principles and do the impossible. And a lot of people was amazed at him and says, wow, you can't do that. But Elvis showed him you can. All you got to do is believe. When he was getting in that 73, 74, 75 period, he was wearing, you'll see pictures boarding the airplane in his karate uniform. You'll see pictures of him on the airplane in his karate uniform with his belt. And he did that to let the world know, oh, you're in martial arts. That was his way of trying to promote the martial arts. He even put Ed Parker's Kempo patch on his guitar so he could promote the martial arts and to let the world know he did it. And that was his subtle way of doing it. Now, in some concerts, he was on stage and just wanted to talk about the martial arts and did it for like 20 or 25 minutes. Some people started booing. They come to hear him sing, and he said, well, I want to talk about karate and how good it is for you. And all the ranks to black belt in it. They didn't want to hear that, but he loved the arts, and he did want to share it with people. Theoretically, your black belt system changes from school to school and system to system. And Elvis came up through the ranks, and that was part of where he got most of his ranks from Ed Parker. And when he got up to 6th degree, that's where they had their falling out. And he came over to Kong Ree, and Kong Ree was only a 7th degree and was unable to promote somebody to the same rank he is. So we had a big black belt meeting, consisted of Bill Wallace, myself, Al Holcomb, who was in the documentaries, The New Gladiator, our whole staff of black belts, and we as a group promoted Elvis, actually promoted Kong Ree to 8th degree so we could promote Elvis to 7th. So that's how Elvis got to 7th degree. And then Elvis down the road ended up getting to his 8th degree back through Ed Parker and Kong Ree as well. And there was people that would say, oh, was he real good? Did his money buy this? No, his money didn't buy it, but his influence, his charisma, his character, his power, his passion. It was he was passionate about the martial arts to where when he went from Ed Parker to Kong Ree was willing to do anything to get Elvis in our system. So he even had us promote him to an 8th degree so he could become a 7th degree. But Elvis wanted to earn it like anybody else. He did not want to buy it. He didn't want somebody to give it to him. He wanted to earn it. talking about his passion for the martial arts. Elvis loved the martial arts so much. It meant as much to him as singing and performing did, because all of a sudden, as you notice through this new Gladiator, he got to where he was leading the class and he was leading the demonstrations. He wanted to set the examples that if you apply yourself and you work hard at it, you too can do what I can do. You know, it was almost a biblical sense, but he wanted to get out there and he wanted to show everybody. Wasn't something given to him. He trained and worked for what he got. And he had a passion, but everything Elvis did, he had a passion for. You know, it wouldn't matter if it was racquetball. Whatever he did, it was just having fun. He had a passion for it. He was an incredible person to me. The styles that Elvis trained in was a Japanese style. Let me give you just a brief history lesson about the martial arts. The martial arts started in China and drifted over to Japan. And then from Japan, it drifted over to Okinawa, then Korea. Well, when our military people went over to the military and they started, like Elvis did, they started studying these arts based upon where they were at, just like Chuck Norris. He was in Korea, so he studied Taekwondo. And Elvis was in Germany, and they had a Japanese karate teacher there, which happened to be awesome. He was just an incredible fella. So Elvis studied with him, and it was when he got tested, Sonny West told me that they were somewhere, and when he got tested, it was a private testing, and it lasted for about 4 hours. They went in there together, and Elvis came out, and his tongue was dragging from the rank test. But that's the kind of person that Elvis was. He really wanted to earn it, didn't want anything given to him. It was like going to the White House again. He went there just as anybody, just like a citizen, not because he was Elvis Presley. Now, he was after he got there, but just an incredible person to me. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
But anyway, as he studied the Kempo was his favorite art. He liked them all. It's like religion. They're all good. They all may get you to heaven, but he personally liked Kempo the best, and he liked Taekwondo. So he drifted from Japan to Kempo, which was Hawaiian style, and then ended up in Taekwondo, and then going back to Kempo again. Actually, when Elvis showed up, he was energy. It's the kind of thing you'd almost have to be there to witness. A real deal. I mean, every time Elvis would come to the dojo, I could start looking at the front door like he's fixing to come in. He's fixing to come in. Now, we would know he'd be coming, but I could almost feel his presence when he entered on top of that lot. He had such a charisma about him. It was just incredible to me. I'd look at the door, within 30 seconds, here he comes walking in the door. It was just awesome. And to be able to experience that was like something I haven't been able to experience since then. I've been with the Entertainer of the Years, lots of stars. Nobody else generated that charisma. First of all, the very first school that he came to here in Memphis was over at Conree's, which was located over on Poplar. And then the Tennessee Karate Institute was over on Cleveland and Overton Park. And it was above the pharmacy, which was downstairs. A family that owned the pharmacy owned the building, and they rented it to us. We had a great time there. Didn't have any much air conditioning. It seems like the air conditioning was broke at the time that we entered the building. Got fixed at a later date, but we had some hot workouts in there. The other place that we trained, Congaree had another school, which was over at Brooks and Lucyville, which is in Whitehaven off of Brooks Road. It was a 2-story building, real big. It probably had 8,000, maybe 7,000 square feet in it. And it had 2 floors. We didn't use both floors a lot, mostly the downstairs. And that was a comfortable place, and it was real close to Elvis's home. That was where Elvis gave Connery his Cadillac and got promoted to his 7th degree black belt, was at that location. Back then, we was fighting in the United States. Karate tournaments was happening all over the United States. They were in New York City, they were in California, Chicago, Miami, Mexico, New Mexico. They were like all over. So all of a sudden, we started putting together teams that would represent the United States, or the Chuck Norris team would have a team. We was getting to where we was developing the TCB martial arts system to where we could have teams. But Elvis wanted that TCB martial arts system to be able to incorporate all martial arts styles into one. And it wasn't that one system is better than another. They all are good. And that's what Elvis wanted to get across. Most martial arts systems out there, they think, oh, my system's the best. Oh, no, my system's the best. But Elvis felt like all systems are good. And let's put them under an umbrella, and let's call it the TCB Karate and Martial Arts System. So that's how that came about. So, and we still do that today. Now it's in the Olympics. Mostly Taekwondo is the fighting styles in it. Our system of the Pasaru under Connery, we used animal names by what you mostly resembled. And you would get an animal name when you would leave white belt going to yellow. Yellow was like the 1st degree of our system as we started traveling the path through the belts getting to the black belt. And when you started with the program, the teachers would watch you and you would strive and work hard, and then you would figure out what would be a good animal name, because the martial arts, most of the hand techniques, the praying mantis and all of the kung fu stuff was developed from animals. So they would watch the eagle, what would work great for him, and then the tiger, and that's why the dragons came out through the Chinese martial arts. So in our system, we would take on an animal name by what you mostly resembled or wanted to resemble. So mine was lion, king of the jungle, because I wanted to be the best out there. Elvis, on the other hand, he got the name, started off with the name of Black Panther, because he was tall, long, and sleek, black hair, and so he looked like a panther, just pretty and black. And so when we first gave him that name, boy, he was happy. And he goes home and thinks about it, and then he calls Connery back the next day, and he says, Master Ree, I don't want to be disrespectful or nothing, but Elvis was always real careful about making political statements. I always admired him for that. But anyway, he asked Mr. Ree, he says, Master Ree, he says, I've gotten home and I've thought about it. He says, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but would it be okay if I change my animal name? And Master Ree said, well, what would you want to change it to? He says, Tiger. He says, there's a movement going on in the country called the Black Panthers, and I'd hate people to think that I supported that group by people calling me a panther. And he says, I want to be real careful about my political statements. Connery said, sure, if you like Tiger, Tiger it is. So we changed his name from Panther to Tiger. And my life is better for him, just getting to share a little piece of history with him. It's a mountaintop experience.